Have you identified some cuts that you're really looking at that you think will be successful? Do you think the 2 trillion is a realistic number now that you're looking more closely at it?
Yeah, well, um, I think we'll try for 2 trillion. I think that's like the best case outcome. But I do think that you kind of have to have some overage. I think if we try for 2 trillion, we've got a good shot at getting one.
There you have it. Elon Musk, who Trump has tasked with leading the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, is starting to realize that his goal of slashing $2 trillion from the annual federal budget is unrealistic, to say the least. Some might say laughable, but in this recent interview with Mark Penn, Democratic pollster turned marketing exec, Musk seemed to acknowledge he probably would not be able to reduce our $6 trillion budget by a third, but that's not what he's saying, or at least that's not what he said a few months ago. We'll put it that way. Here he is on the campaign trail in October.
How much do you think we can rip out of this wasted $6.5 trillion Harris-Biden budget?
Well, I think we can do at least 2 trillion.
Yeah!
Yes.
2 trillion.
Your money is being wasted, and the Department of Government Efficiency is going to fix that.
So even though he's changed his tune since that pep rally just a few months ago, Musk still stands by his claim that he'll be able to cut federal spending significantly. Listen.
In terms of saving money in the government, well, as you know, it's a very target-rich environment for saving money. Like if you look at any direction, it's like people's like, where will you find places to save money? I'm like, it's like being in a room full of targets. Like you could close your eyes and you can't miss. So there's just a lot of waste in government because, especially the federal government, you just got a situation where the checks never bounce. Like they've got like the infinite money computer.
Yeah, but here's what's interesting, right? Elon Musk, the Republicans seem to care so much about government waste and federal spending, yet the main goal going into the Trump administration this time is to do more tax cuts. So let's remind you, extending the 2017 tax cuts would add $5 trillion to the deficit over 10 years, according to an estimate from the Congressional Budget Office, CNBC providing the details there. It's just, it's alarming at this point, Cenk, what they put out there versus the truth.
Yeah. So look, all right, there's one way to look at this. Vince Lombardi, legendary football coach, once said, we try for perfection, knowing that we can't ever achieve it, so that we may hit excellence. Okay, that sounds pretty good. Here's another way of framing this. Yeah, so in other words, you were just another lying politician. So keep it real. So look, when he said we're going to cut at least $2 trillion out of a $6 trillion budget, anyone that knows anything about politics knows that that is absurd and totally and utterly undoable. And why? Is it because, wow, I love waste, fraud, and abuse? No, I hate it. In fact, I have specific suggestions on how to cut it and what to cut, and we'll get to that in a second. But no, if you've never followed politics before, or you haven't followed it closely, you won't have seen dozens of politicians in the last 25, 30 years saying, we're going to cut waste, fraud, and abuse, and they almost never do. There is one exception, which I'll get back to. And what they always say, we're going to cut a huge number, and then they cut like $3. Because for two reasons, by the way. One, it's not easy to cut Social Security and Medicare. The American people love those programs, and they are a giant part of the budget. It's not easy to cut defense because the politicians and the military-industrial complex loves defense, and that's a giant part of the budget. And the last part is the debt. You got to pay the interest rate on the debt, and that is also gigantic. So when you take those things out, which you shouldn't take out defense. I'll come back to that. But when you take those things out, there's like $17 left. And so I'm going to cut welfare, and I'm going to cut education. I'm going to punish the poor and whatever. Okay, all right, great. It still doesn't come anywhere near 1 trillion, let alone 2 trillion. There's almost no chance he's going to cut $1 trillion, let alone 2. But I think I have so much more to say on it. But Sharon, I think the real key is, are they going to put anything on that list that's real? Like a $30 billion in oil subsidies. It's totally unjustifiable. It goes to the richest companies in the world. That's for nascent industries. The oil industry has been around forever. Are they going to cut anything from the bloated Pentagon where they can't possibly pass an audit, says they don't know where the $400 billion is, et cetera? Maybe they do some of that because some of their base pushes forward a little bit. And then, hey, whatever they cut that's legitimate, I'm going to give them a world of credit on. But if they don't cut those things, I'm going to point that out and tell you guys, oh my God, they were so full of crap. They're just the most standard politicians you've ever seen. Make giant promises and deliver nothing. So that jury's out, but it began to come in today, Sharon, when Elon's like, did I say two trillion?
Right.
I meant maybe 1 trillion. Oh, okay, all of a sudden.
Yeah, and that's where my focus is. I don't believe for a second they're going to cut any of those things that you mentioned, where it's so bloated and an audit would not turn out favorably for the Pentagon and so on and so forth. But I just wonder, it's not like he said this 2 years ago. He said it a couple of months ago, and it's been played over and over again. And then it's just the grace that this guy and the rest of MAGA world is allowed here. No one's calling him out saying, wait a minute, you moonwalk back about $4 trillion here and counting, and nobody's holding them accountable. And I just don't understand how you can go from that pep rally to still being in their pocket and saying, oh, Elon's the greatest thing ever, this trust fund baby Elon Musk.
Yeah. So look, this one, I actually don't think that a lot of people know about this interview that he did with Mark Penn, because I give a right wing a tiny bit of credit on H-1B visas. They did push back against Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. And by the way, later in the show, we're going to talk about how Bernie Sanders agrees with the right wing base against Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy on H-1B visas, or at least partly agrees with them. And I love that people are having thoughtful, open-minded conversations. But on this one, I am curious to see how they'll react if they ever see it, because the only place they can see it is places like the Young Turks, because right-wing media is not going to go and emphasize, oh my God, he was full of crap. He cut it by 50% overnight, right? Like, meaning his goals and his ambitions, etc. And I don't know when the right wing's going to get tired of right-wing leaders lying to them. I know they got tired of Democrats lying to them, and I know they got tired of some establishment Republicans lying to them. But will they get tired of Trump and Elon Musk lying to them? So that's a good question, right? And so, but what's interesting is that mainstream media doesn't cover it much either. I'm a little worried that mainstream media took the exact wrong message away from this election. So my message is hold everyone accountable. Hold the Democrats accountable, hold the Republicans accountable, hold Biden accountable, hold Trump accountable. I'm worried that the press got the message, no, these guys won, and we no longer think it's a fluke, so must switch to accommodating power, because this should be a giant story. Elon Musk backpedaling on $1 trillion worth of cuts. And by the way, if you don't know, the only people who actually delivered on that was Bill Clinton and Al Gore. So Bill Clinton said that he put his vice president Al Gore in charge of cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. And they actually did. And they actually balanced the budget. Only president in my lifetime that's balanced the budget. So Bill Clinton had many other issues, but always credit where credit is due. And by the way, so how did Donald Trump do compared to Clinton? Because Clinton balanced it. So I'm sure Trump, being the fiscally responsible gentleman that he's been his whole life, balanced the budget last time around, right? Because he had 4 years. Not like he had a year. It's not like he didn't have a chance. He added... Oh my God, don't tell me he added 1 trillion and now they got to cut that trillion he added. No, don't tell me he added 2 trillion. Yes, to the debt overall for the 4 years, he added $8.4 trillion to the debt. So right now he has a track record of failure and hypocrisy. And Elon added a little bit to that today, but hey, jury's still out. I got an open mind. Credit where credit is due and discredit where discredit is due. So that's coming in either direction.
Yeah, and the credit where credit is due part, you mentioned Bernie Sanders. You listen, when he can agree, he's going to agree. Obviously, we know Bernie Sanders, when he doesn't see it that way, he's not shy about explaining himself. Can that help credibility-wise? You talked about the media, mainstream media, just kind of rolling over. He won. there's nothing we can do. Let's just, if not accommodate, just take a back seat. If Bernie Sanders and others say, look, John Ossoff has said it too, I'm going to work with them where I can. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to talk, and I'm going to be vocal where I can. Can that help with this credibility issue with everyday voters, even progressives?
Yeah, look, I love the Bernie's doing that, but it's easy for me to agree because I'm doing the same thing, right? And I almost wanted to play a clip of Obama.
That's why I put it to you.
Well, thank you, Sharon. I appreciate it. I almost wanted to play a clip today of Obama talking to Trump during the Jimmy Carter funeral and laughing and smiling. So apparently, traitor, racist, fascist. No, of course you have to talk to the right wing sometimes, and you don't have to yell at the top of your lungs at all times, says a guy who is used to yelling at the top of his lungs. So if I could say, hey, maybe we shouldn't yell all the time, then maybe we all can say it. So that's great. And look, if they do go towards cutting, I would much rather have them cut the Pentagon than Social Security. So if we can, let's all be smart like Bernie Sanders and push in that direction. And if it turns out we have an interesting agreement on some portion of H-1B visas, that's also super interesting. Actually, Bernie got me to start changing my mind on that. So we'll save that for later in the show. But I wanted to add one last thing about this story. He's on a Mark Penn. A lot of you might not know who Mark Penn is. And that's a curious choice, too, because Mark Penn is one of the most establishment people in my lifetime. He was the #1 pollster and consultant for Bill and Hillary Clinton. He was an enormous part of the Hillary Clinton 2016 campaign. So Elon Musk likes Mark Penn. I thought they were anti-establishment. It doesn't get any more pro-establishment than Mark Penn. And it's interesting that Mark Penn is cheerleading him on in terms of cuts, because there's no way he means the Pentagon. Mark Penn being the establishment, theoretically Democrat, but he's so right-wing. He's as close to Mitch McConnell as you get in the Democratic Party. What Mark Penn has always wanted to cut is Social Security and Medicare. So that is a dangerous conversation.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.